Hello and welcome to Library Drawing Party. Today we're going to be drawing these beautiful flowers. To get started, let's take our yellow colored pencil and we're going to start outlining the petals. So for these daisies, although you could easily use the same technique for Black-Eyed Susan, we're going to be drawing a slightly curved straight line that goes up in a vertical direction. And we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. We're using yellow for this because it's light, so if you make a mistake you can color right over it. And then I'm going to use my yellow and make almost an S shape right next to it, then a half circle with this petal, then I'm going to draw a circle for the center of the flower, and then I'm going to draw a curved line for the rest of the petals. I'm using yellow instead of my number 2 pencil because then this way we won't be seeing any gray shadows when we're ready to add in our colors. We can just go ahead and add in the yellow. There's going to be some overlap here, so we want to make sure we're getting those curved lines, but if it gets cut off a bit by another petal, that's perfectly fine. And we want it to go all the way around the flower, except we're missing a couple of petals here, so we just want to omit those. And then there's nice curved line. The top petals seem to be a little bit longer than the bottom ones, so we just want to make sure that we're getting that nice long lines. Once you have the flower outline, you can add in your yellow base coat. So I'm going to fill in the petals with the yellow, but I'm going to leave some white because we're going to be layering a lot of colors on top of this. This will also help you see your flower. For colored pencils, it's always a good idea to layer, starting with the lighter colors. Because it's very hard to erase colored pencils. Okay, once you have your base coat drawn, then we can take our brown and fill in the center of the flower. So this should be a circle. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle. Nothing in nature is going to be completely perfect, but we do want it to be in a circular shape. And then I'm going to add in some stippling or dots. It's okay if some of the dots come outside of the center. Give it a natural look. Alright, next up we'll take our orange and I'm going to add in some colors coming out from the center. So I want these lines to follow the petal. And I don't want them to go all the way out to the edge. I do want the edge of the petal to still be yellow. So this is mostly going to fill in the middle of the flower, and I'm just mainly doing the first half. So if you think of this as being split into two halves, the outer half is going to still be mostly yellow, and then the inner half is going to have this nice orange color. And we want to see the strokes, so you don't want to blend this in too much. And then to give it even richer color, I'm going to add in some brown. This will help tie in the center of the flower with the petals. We don't want to cover up all of the orange. This is just going to give it some more texture, so we just want these lines to complement the orange color that we just added. Alright, now I'm going to take my yellow and I'm going to start to blend everything together. So I'm going to be pressing almost to the full extent. We get that nice rich yellow color. We want to be pressing pretty hard for this, and we want to be getting rid of any remaining white. And we want there to be yellow along the edges. So we want the yellow to be beyond where we drew our orange. Now for colored pencils, especially when you're pressing this hard on the page, you're going to want your pencil to be sharp, but you don't want it to be very sharp because it will break more easily. So I like mine to have pretty flat edge. But you can always sharpen it as you go along. It's a nice balance between a nice sharp point and a flat tip, which works well for filling in colors like we're doing right now. If you think about it like a paintbrush, there's different types of paintbrushes. There's ones that have flat edges, there's ones that have rounded edges. There's ones that are very thin, there's ones that are very thick. So you just want to keep that in mind when you're coloring and sharpening your pencils. It's starting to come together. I'm going to use my number 2 pencil to add in some more shadow. I don't want to add in a lot though because I want to keep the colors pretty vibrant. You can also take a blue or purple. This will give it a nice deep dark tone. And then purple is the contrasting color to yellow, so it'll help bring out that yellow color. You want to make sure your lines are following your petal lines. And we want these to have lots of curves in them. And then I want to put in some more shadow in the center. And I'm going to add in some more dots or stippling. I'm going to add in some orange highlights. top. Our light source is coming from this direction. I'm going to use some more orange to brighten this up. And I'm going to put another dark coat of yellow on top to really bring out these colors and mix in the ones that we just added. I want there to be a little bit more shadow towards the tip of each petal, so I'm going to add in some more blue violet. And some more brown, warm it up. And add in some more orange lines for texture. Okay, once you have your first daisy drawn, then we're going to repeat that process up at the top of our drawing. So I'm going to use my yellow. I'm going to start with the center of the flower. I like having the 3 flowers for this drawing because your eye is drawn in a circle. So we go upwards or we come downwards. So I want to keep that nice curve going. So I'm putting, it's almost like the 2 corners. Like this is in this corner and this is in corner. So once I draw in my circle, I'm going to go ahead and draw in my petals using those curved lines. And they're all going to come off of the center. You want to press pretty lightly because we're going to be layering on top of it, especially right here since we're going to be putting in our orange flower over top. You want to make sure you keep this section really light, so we'll be able to do that layering pretty easily. And some pieces are wider than others. We have a nice thin petal right here. You want to be mindful that we are having some variation in our petals. Some of the petals are curved and they have some turned edges. There's going to be some space between some of the petals, maybe because of the wind or the way that they're growing. And it's also going to get narrow curves. So the smallest point is near the center and out towards the edge. Okay, now we're going to put our light base coat of yellow over the petals. And I'm going to take my brown and color in the center. And then I think before we do any layering, I want to draw the outline of my orange flower. So I'm going to draw the center of the flower and then the petals, which are going to overlap on top of our yellow daisy or black-eyed Susan if you're drawing a black-eyed Susan. Again, these lines are going to curve. There's going to be some pointed edges near the tips. There's going to be some thinner pieces, like this petal has a nice thin tip. Some are going to go off the page, like right here. Every flower in nature is going to be different. If yours looks different than mine at home, that's perfectly natural. These 2 petals Their edges are turned in, so they're going to have flat tips. And then it turns into a pointed tip over here. And then the petals are going right in between flowers. This one's in the foreground, so some of these petals are going to come behind our main flower. And there's a lot of curves in this petal, and then we have another petal up here. So I'm going to come back to the top petal, and I'm going to work with my orange one right now. So I'm going to fill in the petals with the orange with my light base coat. You're going to want to keep a lot of white for this because we're going to be layering. So you want the background to still be visible. You can color right over the yellow. Then I'm going to take my brown and then color in the center of the daisy. Then I'm going to work on the petals. So I'm going to add in the brown. And since this flower is a little bit darker than the other two, we can be a little bit more heavy-handed with our colors. So I'm going to add in brown, long petals. You want it to be smallest near the center, and then it gets wider as it goes along. You only want it to be about halfway down the petals. And you can throw in some lines for texture. You just want those to follow the lines that you drew for the petal. And I'm going to take some blue or purple and add that in for shadow. And this is a great contrast to the orange because blue and orange are contrasting colors. I'm going to add this in to our petals. Nice dark tones, shadows. And we want the strokes to follow the petals so they come from the center out towards the edges. And these relatively long strokes. And they can come out to the, and put a couple of lines out to the edges for texture. I'm going to take my orange and I'm going to start to lock in those colors. I'm going to press hard. And again, we want the orange to come past the blue and the brown. So the blue and the brown is supposed to be inside the petals. You can even add some orange to the center. Alright, once you have your orange color defined, you can use some yellow for the edges for highlight. This will brighten some of that orange color up a bit. And help get rid of any remaining background color. darken my center here, so I'm going to add in some more brown. I'm going to add in some more purple or dark blue. I'm going to add in stippling or dots for texture. I'm going to emphasize this side since our light source is coming from here. Go over some of those lines that we had drawn initially. Really bring out those dark tones. And I want to just put in some brown, add in some more warm colors. I want to clean up some of these edges. Don't have to be perfect, but I do want to have some straight lines, so I'm going to use the brown for that. These are smooth petals. I'm going to have smooth lines, but not too perfect. Okay, and let's go back to our top flower and continue working on that. Let's take our brown and add in those inner lines. And it's a good idea to do the orange flower first because then you'll know where you can draw your background flower. I'm going to take some orange and add that in. We want to do this a little lighter than when we were doing the orange flower because we want the yellow to shine through. I'm going to put in some blue or violet in the center, some stippling for texture, and some dark lines, especially towards the center of the petal. And I'm going to take my yellow to lock in the color, so I'm going to press with the full force of the pencil, following the lines that we drew for our petal. So we're going to keep all of those curves. Okay, once you have your yellow fine, you can go in and add some more brown lines for texture. Smooth some of the edges out. Add in some more brown near the center. And then darken the center up a bit more. Put in a bit more of the violet. Okay, and then let's work on the background. So we're going to be adding in some leaves. So there's a stem that comes out this way because there's flowers that we can't even see. And since we want the flowers to be in the foreground, we're going to press pretty lightly for the leaves in the background. You want to make sure that the leaves are coming off of the stems. And they can be pretty small because they're in the background. And you can think of them as being far away. And then there's some coming out of the petals. And then some from off the page. And some in the middle. And some of them are going to overlap. And some towards the bottom. And some more off the page ones. And some in between the petals. And there's another stem coming this way. Okay, and we're going to take that blue or purple that we were using for our flowers, and we're going to add that lightly for our background color. I'm using vertical lines. You want to make sure your strokes are even. You want about the same thickness and color going across. You want to make sure that you apply an even pressure throughout. And in these smaller, harder to reach areas, you don't have to worry so much about being vertical. It's just in these main areas, like in the center right here, that's when you want to have those vertical lines to keep everything consistent. You can try doing horizontal lines as well. I just like that the vertical lines fit with a lot of our petals in this drawing. This blue violet color is a good choice for the background because it, again, will emphasize the flowers as it is a contrasting color. And contrasting colors make everything stand out. You can use the side of your pencil for this. It may help you get a more even stroke and blends things a little bit easier. And there you have it. That's our daisies. Thank you for joining us in this week's library drawing party. We have library drawing parties every Wednesday at 7 p.m. and keep being creative.